The White House tonight tries to stem the fallout from something else. James Comey's explosive first interview since being fired by the president. The former FBI director describing in stunning and sometimes in graphic detail the conversations he says he had with the president, the private dinner, and the unverified dossier that Comey says the president was fixated on. In particular, the most salacious allegation contained in that dossier. Tonight, what we never heard from James Comey before, one-on-one with George Stephanopoulos.
As you headed into Trump Tower that day, were you nervous?
Yes.
FBI Director James Comey was with a group of intelligence agency heads briefing the president-elect and his top aides on how the Russians interfered in our election.
President-elect Trump's first question was to confirm that it had no impact on the election. And then the conversation, to my surprise, moved into a PR conversation about how the Trump team would position this and what they could say about this. They actually started talking about drafting a press release with us still sitting there. And the reason that was so striking to me is that that's just not done. That the intelligence community does intelligence, the White House does PR and spin.
You also said you were struck by what they didn't ask.
Very much. No one, to my recollection, asked, so what's coming next from the Russians? How might we stop it? What's the future look like? It was all, what can we say about what they did and how it affects the election that we just had?
Comey says he then asked to meet alone with Trump to warn him about that now infamous Steele dossier. Unverified information on Trump's ties to Russia, including allegations of Trump's encounters with prostitutes in Moscow.
Well, I'm about to meet with a person who doesn't know me. He's just been elected president of the United States. By all accounts, and from my watching him during the campaign, could be volatile. And I'm about to talk to him about allegations that he was involved with prostitutes in Moscow and that the Russians taped it and have leverage over him.
Did you tell him that the Steele dossier had been financed by his political opponents?
No. I don't even think I used the term Steele dossier. I just talked about additional material.
But did he have a right to know that?
That had been financed by his political opponents? I don't know the answer to that. It wasn't necessary for my goal, which was to alert him that we had this information.
How graphic did you get?
I think as graphic as I needed to be. I started to tell him about the allegation was that he had been involved with prostitutes in a hotel in Moscow in 2013 during a visit for the Miss Universe pageant, and that the Russians had filmed the episode. And he interrupted very defensively and started talking about it. You know, do I look like a guy who needs hookers? And I assumed he was asking that rhetorically. I didn't answer that, and I just moved on and explained, sir, I'm not saying that we credit this. I'm not saying we believe it. We just thought it very important that you know.
Did you tell him you thought it wasn't true, or you didn't know if it was true or not?
I never said I don't believe it, because I couldn't say one way or another.
How weird was that briefing?
Really weird. It was almost an out-of-body experience for me. I was floating above myself, looking down, saying, you're sitting here briefing the incoming president of the United States about prostitutes in Moscow.
Comey says that on January 27th, at a private dinner in the White House, President Trump raised the issue again.
Says he may want me to investigate it to prove that it didn't happen. And then he says something that distracted me, because he said, you know, if there's even a 1% chance my wife thinks that's true, that's terrible. And I remember thinking, how could your wife think there's a 1% chance you were with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow? I'm a flawed human being, but there's literally zero chance that my wife would think that was true. So what kind of marriage to what kind of man does your wife think there's only a 99% chance you didn't do that? And I said to him, sir, when he started talking about it, I may order you to investigate that. I said, sir, that's up to you, but you'd want to be careful about that, because it might create a narrative that we're investigating you personally. And second, it's very difficult to prove something didn't happen.
Did you believe his denial?
Honestly, never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow in 2013. It's possible, but I don't know.
And George is with us tonight from New York. And George, really just extraordinary to hear a former FBI director talk about a sitting president in this way. And you were telling us that Comey says the president kept going back to that dossier and those salacious accusations?
Again and again and again, David. Yeah, not only in that first meeting they had at Trump Tower, but in subsequent phone calls and subsequent meetings at the White House as well. It certainly seemed to be an obsession of the president's. As Comey said, the president at one point even wanted him to investigate this, although Comey told him it wasn't a good idea. But it's just extraordinary to hear the detail of those conversations with the president that a sitting FBI director thought he would never have.
And you know, George, for many people watching this tonight, just hearing Comey talk in those terms and in such detail has to be somewhat stunning. I can only imagine what it was like for you sitting across from him.
You know, I've done a lot of interviews, David, as have you. I've never done one like this. It was intense. It was several hours long. I think everybody in the room, even Comey's team, even Comey's wife, were surprised by what they were hearing over those hours. This is a man who has a lot to say. In some ways, he's a man on a mission. He's going to get a lot of criticism from both sides for this interview, but he is determined to go forward with this and really set the story straight from his perspective.
All right, George, thanks so much. And we should note that George will have much more of his exclusive interview with James Comey and, of course, the fierce reaction to it Sunday morning on This Week. And, of course, the full interview Sunday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.